We begin tonight with the Biden administration's efforts to tackle rising inflation and record high gas prices. President Biden said today that he's considering supporting a federal gas tax holiday to address pain at the pump. The move could save drivers as much as 18 cents a gallon. Former Vice President Pence, however, gave a speech today calling out President Biden for his handling of the economy.
The economic woes now upon us have been caused almost single-handedly by one person, the 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. You know, never in my lifetime has there been a greater disconnect between the President and the American people.
And for more, let's bring in Nancy Cordes. Nancy is CBS News Chief White House correspondent. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you. So President Biden says that he'll decide on a federal gas tax holiday by the end of this week. Can you tell us what's likely factoring into this decision, and how would this actually work? How would it actually go into effect if he decides to move forward?
Clearly, Caitlin, he's under a lot of pressure to do something about gas prices. That's the main explanation for why a White House had previously rejected this idea of a federal gas tax holiday, along with many leaders in Congress. Now says that it's actively considering the notion, and the president saying he's going to make a decision by Friday. The reason that the White House hasn't been that hot on this idea before now is because eliminating the gas tax, even temporarily, that's 18 cents a gallon federal tax. There's a concern, a long-held concern, that it would just basically give retailers an opening to raise their prices that much more, and that people who are filling up wouldn't, at the end of the day, feel the benefits. And beyond that, federal gas taxes are used to pay for things that people care about, road maintenance, road repair. That's why it has long been viewed by a lot of members of Congress, not all, but a lot, as something of a gimmick. Now, the president, looking at gas prices going higher and higher all the time, says he's thinking about it. He also said he's thinking about gas rebate cards. The reality, however, is that even if he decides he's behind either of these things, Congress would have to approve them. It's not at all clear that Congress has the votes to do that.
Very interesting to see that while that sounds like a good idea on paper, that Democrats also want to be touting their infrastructure plans. Be interesting to see how these vulnerable Democrats are talking about this. Meanwhile, President Biden continues to fend off questions about whether or not the U.S. is heading towards a recession. This time, he talked about it in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
I promise.
Recession's even more likely than ever.
Not the majority of them aren't saying that. Come on, don't make things up, okay? Now you sound like a Republican politician. I'm joking. That was a joke.
All right, Nancy, so why is this question about the recession, a possible recession, kind of getting under his skin so much?
Well, I think, first of all, no president wants to preside over recession. That's an unenviable task. And beyond that, he knows that sometimes these things can kind of be self-fulfilling. The more you talk about how likely a recession is, the more that consumer confidence takes a hit, people stop spending, and that can contribute to a recession. He's incorrect, though, to say that most economists aren't predicting a recession. I mean, at this point, we're seeing several key data points. The Financial Times just put out a new poll that shows that 70% of economists think that we will be in a recession at some point in 2023. The Wall Street Journal did a similar poll, and economists told the Wall Street Journal that they think there's a 44% chance that we will be in a recession sometime in the next 12 months. So certainly this notion that the economy is headed towards a slowdown is gaining steam, gaining legitimacy, not just among economists, but a number of investment banks as well. And so, it's a big concern for the president, big concern for the White House. That's why you saw administration officials kind of blanketing the airwaves on the Sunday shows this weekend, saying that it is not at all inevitable that we will see a recession, and that is true.
Certainly a refrain over the weekend from those administration officials. I mean, one of the things that the administration seems to be doing is pointing the finger at oil companies. And the administration invited oil company executives to a meeting at the White House to discuss high gas prices. Do we know what happened in that meeting? Did anything come of it?
The meeting is set to take place later this week. The president says he is not going to participate himself, that it'll be handled by his staff. Reportedly, there are CEOs of several major oil and gas companies who have been invited. Think, Shell, ExxonMobil, BP, that kind of major oil company that'll be involved. And the president says he wants answers from these oil companies about why they aren't refining more here in the United States. The reality is, though, we have an answer to that question. Some of these companies have shut down some of their refining plants here in the U.S. over the past few years, and so their refining capacity has decreased. They may be refining near the levels that they're capable of now, but it's not as much capacity as they used to have. The other reality is that the White House doesn't really have much power over these companies to force them to refine more, to increase supply, to bring down prices. These oil companies are essentially free to supply as much or as little gasoline as they want. But again, there's that pressure on this president, on this White House, to do something, to show the American people that they are taking action. And so, this is one of the options that they've chosen to take this week, is to kind of put public pressure on the oil companies to refine more.
Right. Even if they can't do much, the messaging is really critical, especially heading into these midterms. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, Caitlin.
And let's go over to the Capitol now, where we're going to take a look at what's happening with the January 6th committee. We have CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, who joins us from the Washington Bureau but covers the Capitol. It's good to see you. Scott, thank you so much. So one of two Republicans on the Select Committee, Representatives Adam Kinzinger, says that he received a threat against him and his family, especially his wife, and he has a baby, as I understand. Is this being investigated?
It's so increasingly common for all the members of the January 6th Select Committee, according to Congressman Adam Schiff, with whom I met late today at the Capitol, who's leading tomorrow's January 6th committee hearing. He says he gets them. Mr. Kinzinger gets them. This is part of a fueling of potential political violence nationwide that has accelerated in recent months and recent years and is manifesting itself in the January 6th committee hearing rooms as members say they're getting threats from back home, and as politically toxic moments are now becoming part of the January 6th committee's investigation and public hearings. Mr. Kinzinger from Illinois is retiring this year, but he's being open about it. In his 11th hour on the committee and in the U.S. House, he's getting death threats, a frightening but also illustrative detail about the moment we're in.
Absolutely, and especially as these people are public and out there, and a lot of heated rhetoric out there as well that has consequences. Scott, last week after the committee said that they were interested in a possible interview with Ginny Thomas, who of course is the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, we've all been wondering whether there's been any movement on that. Do you think that she will appear before the committee?
She's the one saying she's willing to appear before the committee. In fact, she's the one who publicly detailed that she'd been asked to meet with the committee. The committee sent her the request, but it was Ms. Thomas who announced she'd received it and has indicated she wants to speak with the committee. According to our latest reporting today, that hasn't happened yet, but the committee members have been pretty clear about why they want to talk to her, about whatever communication she might have had with those local election officials, some of whom we will hear from tomorrow during the committee hearing. Also interested in whatever conversations or communication she had with John Eastman, that California lawyer who devised that plan to overturn the electoral vote count January 6th. It's clear, because the committee's been emphatic now, that they want to talk to Ginny Thomas, but it's less than clear, Caitlin, when that's going to happen.
A lot of people will be very interested in hearing from her. I want to switch gears a little bit because we saw today that Missouri Senate candidate, he's a Republican, Eric Greitens, put out this very provocative, to say the least, political ad. Take a listen.
I'm Eric Greitens, Navy SEAL, and today we're going rhino hunting. The rhino feeds on corruption and is marked by the stripes of cowardice.
All right, so this is very disturbing, to say the least, Scott. Can you tell us about the significance of this ad? I mean, it's coming from former Governor Greitens, and of course he's a former governor because he resigned because he had an affair, and he is running for Senate, but is also, of course, has domestic violence allegations made against him by his ex-wife and his son, I believe. Can you tell us more about this ad and kind of what it means, what it says?
Well, I think it's worth reinforcing what you just said, that he was forced to resign as governor 4 years ago amid allegations of the extramarital affair and amid allegations of threatening behavior. But he's also a Senate candidate at this moment, and he's a Republican Senate candidate in an election in which many political observers believe the person who prevails in the Republican primary is all but a shoo-in to win the general election. But none of this is happening in a vacuum. It's happening at the moment we just described, in which you have members of Congress facing death threats. Political violence is increasing. At least threats of political violence are increasing. We know from our own reporting, Caitlin, U.S. Capitol Police report a significant increase in threat investigations over prior years, by orders of magnitude more investigations of possible violence than they had just years ago. So this new advertisement comes at a moment of concern about political violence, so it's going to stir up some controversy. Also, it's going to stir up some sharing online, on social media. It will spread far and wide, for better or for worse, for the candidate who produced the ad.
Very good point, and it's very interesting that this was not a paid television ad, but the more and more it's shared, the further its reach, and as we've been discussing, of course, the consequences of such ads can be very damning. Scott MacFarlane, thank you so much for your reporting. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Caitlin.